There will come a time in your life when everything seems to fall apart. Perhaps you've experienced it already, a moment when the ground beneath your feet feels like it's crumbling, when you're overwhelmed by loss, pain, or failure. These moments, these trials, are often seen as the breaking point, but I want you to consider them from a different perspective. Instead of life breaking you, what if life is breaking you open? We are taught to view these experiences as destructive, as something that leaves us weaker, diminished. But there is another way to see it. Life doesn't break you to diminish your spirit, it breaks you to awaken something deeper within. It cracks the shell of your ego, the part of you that clings to the illusion of control, so that you can access your true power, your inner light. When life feels unbearable, the temptation is to resist, to fight back against what's happening. But resistance only makes the pain sharper. Instead, ask yourself, what is life asking me to release? What attachments, fears, or limiting beliefs are being stripped away? Because in the breaking, there is always a letting go. Consider the seed buried beneath the soil. In order to grow, it must crack open. The process might seem violent, but it's necessary for the seed to become a tree. And in the same way, your breaking is a sign of growth, not of destruction. When life breaks you, it's an invitation to surrender. Not to give up, but to give in to the flow of life, to the wisdom of the universe, to your highest self. In the moments of your greatest struggle, when it feels as though you have lost everything, that's often when you discover the essence of who you truly are. So when you are faced with those moments, when life seems to be breaking you, don't run from them. Embrace them with a sense of curiosity. Ask yourself, what can I learn here? What is this experience teaching me about myself? In those answers, you will find the strength to rebuild, not as you were, but as someone more attuned to your purpose, more connected to the truth of your being. Remember, life doesn't break you to harm you. It breaks you open so that you may grow, transform, and rise anew. Life has a way of shaking us to our core, disrupting the plans we so carefully lay out for ourselves. In those moments when everything seems to fall apart, it's easy to feel as though life is breaking us down, as though the weight of the world is pressing so heavily on us that we might never recover. But what if this breaking isn't a process of destruction? What if it's a process of opening, a way for life to break you open, to show you parts of yourself that you never knew existed? Imagine for a moment that life is like a sculptor working with a block of marble. The sculptor's task is not to destroy the marble, but to reveal the beautiful figure hidden within it. Each strike of the hammer, each chisel against the stone feels harsh, feels violent. But the sculptor isn't ruining the marble, rather they are bringing forth the masterpiece that lies inside. Similarly, when life delivers its blows, when it feels as though you are being chipped away by circumstances beyond your control, you are not being destroyed. You are being revealed. You are being open to your true essence. There is a reason we often feel shattered when life deals us its hardships. Loss, failure, disappointment, they have a way of leaving us feeling as though everything we believed in has been torn away. But the truth is, what's being stripped away in these moments is not who we really are. What's being torn down are the layers of our ego, the protective shells we've built around ourselves over the years. These shells are made of our fears, our insecurities, our attachments to what we think life should be. When life breaks you open, it's breaking through these layers, allowing you to access the deeper truth that resides beneath. Consider the analogy of a seed. A seed, when planted in the soil, is closed, contained, self-sufficient in its hard outer shell. But in order for the seed to grow into the plant it's destined to become, that shell must break open. The seed must surrender to the forces of nature, moisture, warmth, soil pressure, and in that surrender, its true potential is unlocked. It is not the breaking that destroys the seed, it is the breaking that allows it to fulfill its purpose. In much the same way, we as human beings build protective layers around our hearts, our minds, and our souls. These layers are born of our life experiences, our desire for control, our need for security. But the paradox is that the very protection we seek often becomes the barrier that prevents us from truly living. We may think we are keeping ourselves safe by holding on tightly to our beliefs, our relationships, or our plans for the future. Yet, in reality, we are often holding ourselves back from the full expression of who we are. When life breaks you open, it is an invitation to let go of this false sense of security. It is a call to release your grip on what you think you need so you can step into the unknown where your true self resides. In the breaking, you are forced to confront the truth of impermanence. Nothing stays the same, no matter how much we try to hold on to the status quo. And it's in this realization that we can find a profound sense of freedom. The very act of breaking open frees us from the chains of attachment, and allows us to flow with the ever-changing current of life. It's important to recognize that this process of breaking open is not easy. It can be painful, disorienting, and frightening. We've been conditioned to believe that pain is something to be avoided at all costs. That when we experience hardship, it's a sign that something has gone wrong. But what if the pain is simply part of the process of becoming? What if the discomfort is a sign that you are being called to grow in ways you never imagined? When we stop seeing pain as the enemy, we can start to view it as a teacher. Think of a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis. The process of transformation requires that the caterpillar first dissolve into a formless state inside the chrysalis. It is no longer what it once was, yet it is not yet what it will become. This in-between state can feel like a form of death, a dissolving of the old self. But it is precisely in this breakdown that the butterfly's true nature begins to take shape. The struggle to break free from the chrysalis is essential to the butterfly's development. Without the challenge, its wings would never gain the strength needed to fly. In our own lives, when we are faced with challenges that seem insurmountable, when we feel as though we are being torn apart by circumstances, we are often in our own version of the chrysalis. The process of breaking open is not meant to be comfortable. It is meant to transform you. It is meant to dissolve the old, outdated versions of yourself so that you can step into the fullness of who you are meant to be. There is a great deal of freedom that comes with this understanding. Once we recognize that life is not breaking us down but breaking us open, we can approach difficulties with a new mindset. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we can begin to ask, "What is this experience revealing about me?" Every hardship carries within it the seed of transformation. If we are willing to look beneath the surface, what is being asked to be released? What is being shown to you about the parts of yourself that need to grow? In those moments when it feels as though life has broken you open, you have a choice. You can choose to cling to the past, to resist the process, to hold on tightly to what is familiar, or you can choose to embrace the unknown, to trust that life is guiding you toward a higher version of yourself. This is not about passive acceptance or giving up, it's about active surrender. It's about recognizing that the more you resist, the harder the process becomes. But when you allow yourself to be open, when you trust that life is unfolding exactly as it should, even in the midst of chaos, you find a new kind of strength. This strength is not the brittle, unyielding strength that we often associate with toughness. It is the strength of resilience, of flexibility, of being able to bend without breaking. It's the kind of strength that comes from knowing that no matter what life throws your way, you have the capacity to rise again, not in spite of the breaking, but because of it. The cracks that form when life breaks you open are the spaces through which your light can shine. There is a profound beauty in this process of breaking open. It is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. The more we allow ourselves to break open, the more fully we can live. We begin to realize that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a pathway to deeper connection with ourselves, with others, and with the world around us. When we stop trying to protect ourselves from the inevitable pain of life, we open ourselves to the joy, the love, and the creativity that flow through us when we are fully alive. In the end, life breaking you open is not a process of destruction, but of transformation. It is life's way of calling you back to yourself, of showing you that beneath the layers of ego and fear, you are already whole. The breaking is simply the shedding of what no longer serves you, so that you can step into the truth of who you really are. When life breaks you open, it is giving you the opportunity to rediscover your own power. You are not the sum of your circumstances, your failures, or your losses. You are the light that shines through the cracks, the strength that rises in the face of adversity, the love that remains even when everything else has fallen away. Life breaking you open is life inviting you to step into your fullest, most authentic self. Letting go of resistance is one of the most liberating and yet challenging things we can do in life. We are conditioned from a young age to resist discomfort, to push back against anything that threatens our sense of control or security. This resistance often shows up in subtle ways, whether it's clinging to a particular outcome, holding on to old beliefs, or resisting the inevitable changes that life brings. Resistance is a defense mechanism, a way of protecting ourselves from pain, uncertainty, and the unknown. But in reality, resistance only deepens our suffering. The more we resist, the more we create a wall between ourselves and the flow of life. When we talk about letting go of resistance, we're not talking about giving up or becoming passive. Letting go of resistance is not about surrendering in the sense of defeat, but rather about embracing the flow of life, recognizing that there is a deeper intelligence at work that we may not always understand. Resistance arises when we try to impose our will onto life. when we believe that things should be different than they are. But life has its own rhythm, its own unfolding. And when we resist that natural flow, we create unnecessary struggle. There's a great irony in resistance. We resist because we believe it will protect us, but in truth, it only locks us into patterns of fear and anxiety. When we resist what's happening in our lives, whether it's a challenging situation, a difficult emotion, or a loss, we are essentially saying, this shouldn't be happening, but the reality is that it is happening. Resistance doesn't change the situation, it only adds an additional layer of pain and tension to what we're already experiencing. Let's take the example of grief. When we lose something or someone we love, our natural instinct is to resist the pain of that loss. We don't want to feel the deep ache of sadness, so we push it away, we distract ourselves, or we try to numb the feelings. But grief is a natural part of the human experience. It's not something that can be bypassed or ignored. The more we resist grief, the more it lingers unprocessed and unresolved. On the other hand, when we allow ourselves to feel the fullness of our grief without resistance, we begin to heal. The pain doesn't disappear overnight, but it becomes softer, more manageable. In allowing ourselves to feel, we make space for the emotions to move through us rather than becoming stuck within us. This principle applies to all areas of life. Think about how often we resist change. Whether it's a change in our personal lives, our careers, or our relationships, there's a part of us that clings to the familiar, even when the familiar is no longer serving us. We resist change because it brings with it uncertainty, and uncertainty can be frightening. But life is inherently uncertain. The very nature of existence is change, flux, and transformation. When we resist change, we are resisting the very essence of life itself. We are trying to hold on to something that is, by its nature, fleeting and impermanent. The problem with resistance is that it keeps us stuck. It prevents us from growing, from evolving, from stepping into new possibilities. When we resist, we close ourselves off from the unknown, from the potential that lies beyond our current situation. It's as if we're gripping onto the sides of a river, trying to stop the current from flowing, but all that does is exhaust us. The river of life continues to flow, whether we hold on or not. The choice is ours. We can either resist and struggle, or we can let go and allow ourselves to be carried by the current. Letting go of resistance requires trust. Trust in life, trust in the process, and trust in ourselves. It requires a deep faith that whatever is happening, no matter how difficult or painful, is part of a larger unfolding that we may not yet fully understand. This doesn't mean that we ignore our problems or passively accept everything that comes our way. Letting go of resistance doesn't mean that we stop taking action or working towards our goals. It simply means that we stop fighting against what is. We stop resisting the present moment and instead meet it with acceptance. Acceptance is not the same as resignation. Acceptance is a state of openness, of being fully present with what is happening, without the need to change or control it. When we accept, we are no longer in a state of inner conflict. We are no longer fighting against reality. In this space of acceptance, we find peace, even in the midst of chaos. It's a paradoxical truth. The moment we stop resisting is the moment we begin to find our power. In letting go of the need to control, we actually create more space for change, growth, and transformation to occur. Think about a difficult emotion like anger. When we feel anger rising within us, our instinct is often to resist it. We don't want to feel angry, so we suppress it, we try to push it away, or we distract ourselves. But resisting anger doesn't make it go away. In fact, it often makes it stronger. The more we resist, the more the emotion festers within us, building up pressure like a volcano ready to erupt. But when we stop resisting the anger, when we allow ourselves to fully experience it without judgment, it begins to dissipate. By acknowledging and accepting the emotion, we take away its power over us. The same is true for fear. Fear is one of the most common emotions we resist. We resist fear because it makes us feel vulnerable, because it reminds us of our uncertainty and lack of control. But resisting fear only magnifies it. When we let go of the resistance to fear, we find that it's not as overwhelming as we once thought. In fact, fear can become a guide showing us where we need to grow, where we need to step outside of our comfort zone. Letting go of resistance to fear allows us to face it directly, to move through it rather than being paralyzed by it. One of the greatest teachers of letting go of resistance is nature. Nature flows effortlessly, without resistance, without struggle. The seasons change, the tides rise and fall, the leaves fall from the trees, all without resistance. There is no fear of change, no clinging to what was. Everything in nature is in constant motion, constantly evolving. And yet there is a deep peace in this natural rhythm. When we observe nature, we can see that there is no resistance to the flow of life. It simply is. There is a wisdom in this, a reminder that we too are a part of this natural flow, that we are not separate from the rhythm of the universe. When we let go of resistance, we align ourselves with this natural flow. We stop trying to force life to fit into our preconceived notions of how it should be, and instead, we allow life to unfold as it is. This doesn't mean that we don't have goals or dreams, but it means that we hold those goals lightly without attachment. We trust that life is guiding us in the right direction, even if it doesn't always look the way we expect it. Letting go of resistance means being open to the unexpected, to the unknown, to the possibility that life has something even greater in store for us than we could have imagined. One of the reasons we resist is because we are afraid of losing control. But the truth is, control is an illusion. We can never fully control life or the people around us. We can't control the weather, we can't control the actions of others, and we certainly can't control the events that unfold in the world. The only thing we can control is how we respond to what happens. And this is where our true power lies. When we let go of resistance, we reclaim our power. We shift our focus from trying to control the uncontrollable, to cultivating inner peace and presence. In letting go of resistance, we also begin to see the interconnectedness of all things. We start to realize that life is not happening to us, but for us. Every experience, every challenge, every setback is an opportunity for growth, for expansion, for deepening our connection with ourselves and the world around us. When we resist, we miss these opportunities. We become so focused on fighting against what is happening that we fail to see the gifts that are being offered. But when we let go of resistance, we open ourselves to the lessons and blessings that are woven into every experience. There is a freedom that comes with letting go of resistance. It is the freedom of knowing that we don't have to control everything, that we don't have to have all the answers. It is the freedom of being fully present in each moment without the need to change it. In this space of non-resistance, we find a deep sense of peace, a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. This peace is always available to us, but we can only access it when we stop resisting. Letting go of resistance is a practice. It's something we have to do moment by moment, especially when life presents us with challenges. It's not always easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. But the more we practice, the more we begin to notice the subtle ways in which we resist, and the more we can make the conscious choice to let go. In doing so, we begin to experience life in a new way, more open, more fluid, more connected to the flow of existence. We begin to realize that resistance was never necessary, that the peace we were seeking was available all along, just beneath the surface, waiting for us to let go. Breaking is a natural and inevitable part of the human experience. At some point in life, we all encounter moments when everything we thought was certain begins to fall apart. These moments of breaking, whether caused by loss, failure, or dramatic change, are often the most challenging experiences we face. Yet, in the very act of breaking, something profound happens. We begin to transform. The breaking down of our old ways of being, our old beliefs, and our old attachments paves the way for something new to emerge. It is through these cracks that the light of transformation enters. When we think of breaking, we often associate it with destruction or loss. We fear it because we associate it with pain, vulnerability, and a sense of helplessness. But in reality, breaking is a precursor to transformation. It is the process by which the old is stripped away, making space for something new to be born. In nature, we see this process unfold all the time. A seed must break open for a plant to grow. A caterpillar must dissolve within its cocoon to emerge as a butterfly. These natural processes mirror our own journeys of transformation. The breaking is not the end, it is the beginning. In our lives, we often cling to the familiar even when it no longer serves us. We hold on to relationships, jobs, or ways of thinking that have outlived their usefulness because they provide a sense of security. But life has a way of intervening. When we refuse to let go, life may step in and break things apart for us. At first, this breaking feels like a loss, a disruption to the stability we've worked so hard to create. But upon deeper reflection, we begin to see that what is broken was never meant to last. It was simply the scaffolding, the structure that supported us for a time but is no longer necessary for the next phase of our journey. In moments of breaking, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, as if everything is falling apart at once. We may find ourselves questioning our purpose, our worth, and our direction. But it is precisely in these moments of disorientation that transformation begins. When the old falls away, we are left with a blank slate, an empty canvas upon which we can create something new. The breaking strips us of the roles and identities we've clung to, allowing us to reconnect with the core of who we truly are. Transformation often requires us to step into the unknown, to let go of the certainty we once relied on. This is not an easy task. It requires courage and trust, both in ourselves and in the process of life. When we are in the midst of breaking, it's hard to see the bigger picture. We may feel as though we are losing everything, but what we are truly losing are the illusions, the limitations, and the fears that have held us back. In letting go of these, we make space for a more authentic and empowered version of ourselves to emerge. One of the most powerful aspects of transformation is that it often leads us to rediscover parts of ourselves that have been hidden or suppressed. When we go through a breaking, we are forced to confront the parts of ourselves that we may have neglected or ignored. Perhaps we have been living according to other people's expectations, or we have been suppressing our true desires out of fear of judgment or failure. The breaking shatters these external pressures, leaving us with the raw, unfiltered truth of who we are. In this state of vulnerability, we can begin to reconnect with our deepest passions, values, and purpose. Transformation is not a linear process. It doesn't happen overnight, nor does it follow a predictable path. It is a journey that unfolds in its own time, often in ways that we cannot anticipate. There may be moments of clarity and insight, followed by periods of confusion and doubt. But each step along the way is part of the process. Even when we feel lost or stuck, we are still moving forward, still evolving. The breaking forces us to confront the parts of ourselves that need to change, but it also provides us with the opportunity to rebuild in a way that is more aligned with our true nature. In moments of breaking, we often resist the process. We try to hold on to the familiar, even as it slips away. We fight against the change, hoping to preserve what is no longer sustainable. But resistance only prolongs the pain. The more we cling to the past, the more difficult the transformation becomes. It is only when we surrender to the breaking, when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and open to the unknown, that true transformation can occur. There is a great deal of strength that comes from allowing ourselves to break. It may seem counterintuitive, but in moments of breaking, we are tapping into a deeper reservoir of resilience and inner power. When everything falls apart, we are given the opportunity to discover just how strong we truly are. The breaking strips away the superficial, the external sources of validation, leaving us with the core of our being. It is from this place of authenticity and strength that transformation arises. Breaking leads to transformation because it forces us to let go of what no longer serves us. It strips us of the distractions, the masks, and the false identities that we have built up over time. In the aftermath of breaking, we are left with the essence of who we are. This essence is not something new, it has always been there, waiting to be uncovered. The breaking simply removes the layers that have been obscuring it. Transformation is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to the truth of who we have always been. In moments of breaking, we may feel as though we are losing ourselves, but in reality, we are being guided back to our true nature. The breaking allows us to shed the old, outdated versions of ourselves so that we can step into a more authentic and empowered way of being. One of the gifts of transformation is the ability to see the world in a new way. When we go through a breaking, we are often forced to reevaluate our beliefs, our values, and our priorities. The things that once seemed so important may no longer hold the same weight. We begin to see that much of what we have been striving for was based on external validation or societal expectations. The breaking shatters these illusions, allowing us to see what truly matters. This shift in perspective is a key part of the transformation process. It allows us to let go of the superficial and focus on what is truly meaningful and fulfilling. As we move through the process of transformation, we begin to realize that the breaking was not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. It was the catalyst for our growth, the force that pushed us out of our comfort zone and into a new way of being. The breaking was not a sign of weakness or failure, it was a necessary step on the path to becoming who we were always meant to be. In the end, transformation is a journey of becoming more of ourselves, not less. It is a process of shedding the layers of conditioning, fear, and limitation that have been holding us back, so that we can step into the fullness of our potential. The breaking may feel painful in the moment, but it is through this breaking that we are able to access the deeper truths of our existence. It is through this breaking that we are able to transform. The journey of transformation is not always easy, but it is always worth it. Each time we break, we are given the opportunity to grow, to evolve, and to step more fully into our power. We may not always understand why the breaking is happening or where it will lead, but if we trust in the process, we will find that the breaking is not the end, but the beginning of something far greater. In the midst of breaking, it can be hard to see the bigger picture. It can be hard to trust that this process is leading us somewhere meaningful. But if we look back on our lives, we can often see that the moments of greatest transformation were preceded by moments of breaking. It is in these moments of breaking that we are given the opportunity to release what no longer serves us and step into a new way of being. Breaking leads to transformation because it forces us to confront the parts of ourselves that need to change. It strips us of the old, the familiar, and the comfortable, so that we can step into the unknown and discover the truth of who we are. It is through this breaking that we are able to access the deeper wisdom and strength that resides within us. Breaking is not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. It is the doorway through which we must pass in order to transform. Surrender is often viewed with trepidation and misunderstanding. In a world that prizes achievement, control, and independence, the concept of surrender can seem like an admission of defeat or weakness. Yet true surrender is an act of profound strength. It is a conscious choice to let go of the need to control every aspect of our lives, to relinquish our tightly held plans, and to embrace the flow of existence with an open heart and mind. When we talk about finding strength in surrender, we delve into a deeper understanding of what it means to be human, to be vulnerable, open, and receptive to the ever-changing currents of life. The first step in understanding surrender is recognizing that it does not mean giving up. Surrender is not synonymous with passivity or resignation. Rather, it is an active engagement with the present moment. It requires courage to let go of our expectations, our desires, and the stories we tell ourselves about how life should unfold. This act of letting go can be challenging, as it often involves facing our fears and uncertainties. However, it is in this very act of surrender that we discover an inner strength that we may not have known existed. In our daily lives, we are often caught in a web of expectations of ourselves, of others, and of the world around us. We strive to meet these expectations, believing that if we can just achieve a certain goal, attain a particular status, or control a specific outcome, we will find happiness and fulfillment. Yet the relentless pursuit of these goals can lead to burnout, frustration, and disillusionment. When we cling tightly to our plans and expectations, we inadvertently close ourselves off from the richness of the present moment. Surrender invites us to release this grip, to trust that life has its own rhythm and wisdom, and that by letting go, we can open ourselves to new possibilities. One of the greatest challenges we face in surrendering is the fear of the unknown. We are hardwired to seek security and stability, and when we confront the unpredictability of life, it can trigger feelings of anxiety and uncertainty. However, it is essential to recognize that the unknown is not something to be feared. It is a fertile ground for growth and transformation. When we allow ourselves to surrender to the unknown, we are effectively saying, I trust that whatever unfolds will lead me to where I need to be. This act of trust is powerful. It liberates us from the confines of our limited perspective and opens us up to the infinite possibilities that life has to offer. The act of surrender requires us to cultivate a deep sense of presence. In a society that often encourages multitasking and distraction, we must learn to slow down and become fully present in each moment. When we surrender to the present, we are no longer fixated on the past or overly concerned about the future. Instead, we find ourselves immersed in the richness of now, where life unfolds in all its beauty and complexity. In this space of presence, we begin to discover the strength that lies within us. We become more attuned to our inner voice, our intuition, and the subtle guidance that life offers. Finding strength in surrender also involves embracing vulnerability. Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness, but in reality, it is a source of tremendous power. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we open ourselves up to authentic connections with others. We invite deeper intimacy, understanding, and compassion into our lives. Surrendering our defenses and letting others see us for who we truly are can be terrifying. Yet it is through this vulnerability that we experience genuine relationships and a profound sense of belonging. In moments of surrender, we may also confront feelings of inadequacy or self-doubt. It is easy to fall into the trap of believing that we must always be in control, that we must always have the answers. However, surrender teaches us that it is okay not to have everything figured out. It is okay to be uncertain and to acknowledge our limitations. In fact, it is in this acknowledgement that we find freedom. When we let go of the need to be perfect, or to have all the answers, we create space for growth, learning, and exploration. We become more open to the lessons that life has to offer, recognizing that each experience, whether perceived as positive or negative, contributes to our journey of self-discovery. Another aspect of surrender is the realization that we are not alone in our struggles. Life is inherently interconnected, and our experiences are part of a larger tapestry of existence. When we surrender to this truth, we begin to see that our challenges are shared by many. We find solace in knowing that we are part of a collective human experience where everyone is navigating their own journey of uncertainty and vulnerability. This sense of connection can be deeply comforting, reminding us that we are not isolated in our struggles. Moreover, surrender invites us to cultivate a sense of gratitude. When we let go of our attachment to outcomes and embrace the present moment, we begin to appreciate the beauty in the ordinary. Gratitude shifts our focus from what is lacking to what is abundant in our lives. It allows us to see the gifts that each moment brings, even in the midst of challenges. When we surrender to the flow of life, we start to notice the small joys, the unexpected blessings, and the lessons that emerge from difficult experiences. Gratitude becomes a powerful anchor, grounding us in the present and reminding us of the richness of our lives. Finding strength in surrender is also about recognizing that we are part of a greater purpose. Life is not merely a series of random events, it is a journey of evolution and growth. Each challenge, each moment of breaking, and each act of surrender serves a purpose in our development. When we trust in the unfolding of life, we align ourselves with a greater wisdom that transcends our individual desires and fears. This alignment allows us to tap into a sense of meaning and purpose that can guide us through even the most challenging times. As we surrender, we also begin to recognize the power of intention. While surrendering to the flow of life means letting go of control, it does not mean relinquishing our desires and dreams. Instead, it invites us to approach our intentions with a sense of openness and flexibility. When we set intentions, we create a direction for our lives, but we must also be willing to adapt as circumstances change. Surrendering to the flow allows us to remain aligned with our intentions while being open to the twists and turns that life may present. This balance between intention and surrender is where we find true empowerment. In the practice of surrender, it can be helpful to cultivate mindfulness. Mindfulness is the art of being fully present, aware of our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment. When we practice mindfulness, we become more attuned to our inner experiences, allowing us to recognize when we are resisting and when we are surrendering. Mindfulness teaches us to observe our thoughts without becoming entangled in them, creating space for acceptance and understanding. Through this practice, we learn to respond to life's challenges with grace and equanimity, finding strength in the act of surrender. Surrender is not a one-time event, it is a continuous process that unfolds throughout our lives. As we navigate the various stages of our journey, we will encounter new opportunities to practice surrender. Each moment offers a chance to let go of our expectations and embrace the present as it is. It is essential to approach this practice with compassion and patience, recognizing that surrender is a journey, not a destination. There may be moments when we find it easy to surrender and others when we resist fiercely. Both experiences are valid and part of the learning process. In finding strength in surrender, we also empower ourselves to embrace change. Change is an inherent aspect of life, and it can be unsettling. However, when we learn to surrender to change, we unlock a new level of resilience and adaptability. Change becomes an invitation for growth rather than a source of fear. Each time we embrace change, we strengthen our ability to navigate the ebb and flow of life with grace and confidence. We learn to trust that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. Furthermore, surrender opens the door to creativity and innovation. When we let go of rigid expectations and allow ourselves to be influenced by the world around us, we create space for new ideas and perspectives to emerge. Surrendering to the flow of life encourages us to think outside the box and explore uncharted territories. In this state of openness, we tap into our innate creativity, discovering innovative solutions to challenges we may have previously perceived as insurmountable. Finding strength in surrender also cultivates a sense of self-compassion. In moments of difficulty, we can be our harshest critics, berating ourselves for perceived failures or shortcomings. However, surrender invites us to treat ourselves with kindness and understanding. It reminds us that we are human, that we all experience struggles, and that it is okay to ask for help. Self-compassion allows us to navigate the challenges of life without judgment, fostering a sense of resilience and inner strength that propels us forward. As we embrace the strength that comes from surrender, we may find that our relationships with others deepen. When we surrender our need for control, we create space for vulnerability and authenticity in our connections. We become more willing to listen, to empathize, and to be present with others in their struggles. This openness fosters deeper bonds and a sense of community, reminding us that we are not alone in our journeys. In surrendering, we create a safe space for others to express themselves, cultivating a sense of trust and connection that enriches our lives. In summary, finding strength in surrender is a transformative journey that invites us to let go of our need for control and embrace the flow of life. It is an act of courage that requires us to confront our fears, face our vulnerabilities, and cultivate a deep sense of presence. Surrender allows us to connect with our inner wisdom, discover our true selves, and open our hearts to the beauty of the present moment. In surrender, we find the strength